Did you know that kinky wellness is integral to your self-development? Hi, welcome to The Partition, home of kinky wellness, the ultimate destination to explore the integral connection between kinky wellness and your personal development. I'm your host and kinky wellness coach, Dana Sugar, and I'm here to show why kinky sexual wellness deserves a rightful spot within the wellness conversation. Don't forget to join me each Monday as I bring on a special guest to dive into specific aspects of kinky wellness. So let's strip away the shame and taboo together and have an open conversation about it. Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Partition Podcast. On the previous episode, we welcomed back D20 Dom to discuss everything to do with urophilia, which is better known as water play and includes the infamous play type golden showers. And during our conversation, we briefly touched on the play type called sploshing, or as some know it, wet and messy play. But since we didn't get too into that topic, today is going to be a follow-up on what sploshing is and why it's important for us to get downright filthy. Essentially, sploshing consists of a person getting absolutely covered with a single or a variety of substances that can include food, mud, water, slime, glitter, lotions, gels, paints, oils, or things like soap, shaving foams, or detergents, just to name a few. And some examples of different foods that can be used are things like whipped cream, raw eggs, milk, puddings, syrups, honeys, custards, various condiments, ice cream, peanut butter, cake, or cake batter. Sploshing can be done fully clothed or naked and can serve as a form of entertainment featuring specific performance acts that may or may not include sexual activity. For instance, wrestling in the mud, or participating in a wet t-shirt contest, or doing something called cake sitting, which is exactly as it sounds, can all be considered part of wet and messy play, which goes to show how large of an umbrella this play type actually is. But one of the unique things about wet and messy play is that it's one of the few fetishes that can be seen on TV without any uproar or censorship. Like, have you ever seen a game show that pours water or slime on someone? I hope so, because regardless, I certainly have, and technically that counts, even if the game show didn't intend on it being so. But this play type isn't just about being wet and messy. It can be more about the act of making a mess and just letting loose. Now, although getting wet and messy has been around since the dawn of time, the term sploshing was apparently coined from an old UK fetish magazine called Splosh. And although this magazine is not around anymore, a fun fact about it is that this magazine was first published in 1989 and was entirely devoted to fetishism. But of course, like any play type, there are some considerations that you need to take into account beforehand. Like, are you allergic to any type of substances? Or do you have any sensitivities? Will you be playing inside? Will you be playing outside? Are you going to contain the mess by using something like a blow-up pool? Or will you be using something like a large plastic sheet? And most importantly, do you have enough cleaning material not only for yourself, but for the space that you are playing in? Wet and messy play is certainly a play type where you're going to need to put a lot more effort in your cleanup kit and cleanup routine. Also, if you do choose to play with something that isn't food, mud, water, or something that's made from an organic compound, you need to make sure that the materials or substances being used are safe and non-toxic, because it will be coming in contact with your skin, and there's a high possibility that the substances can be ingested accidentally. But what's great about sploshing and any form of wet and messy play is that it reminds us that as adults, we can still embrace the joy of messiness and that it doesn't need to always be sexual. Of course, you can sexy wrestle in the mud or a giant thing of jelly. But one of my favorite things to do as a kid was going down something called a slip and slide, which I'm sure you know, but essentially it's a giant tarp that would either have water on it, or in my case, it would just have a ridiculous amount of soap on it. And we would slide down it and end up on the other side completely covered in this slimy mess. And it was absolutely wonderful, and still something that I can do now as an adult. I've also participated in things like foam runs, where you run around a track And at various points, you have to go under huge amounts of foam that would cover anywhere from 15 to 20, 30 people at a time. And that feeling of bursting what seemed like a never ending stream of bubbles was also super fun. And both of these examples are forms of wet and messy play where we can just reconnect to our fun and carefree side. But if those examples sound like too much mess for you, try things like finger painting or gardening, because those activities can still get you pretty dirty without the headache of having to clean up some giant tarp with soap all over it. But regardless, my point is that there's a huge range on how you can get messy, and that it's just a matter of choice and how intense you want the experience to be. Because at the end of the day, getting messy, and I mean really getting messy, has benefits. Messiness can nurture creativity because we're doing something unconventional, which can lead us to think outside the box. Getting messy also encourages us to explore and experiment, whether that's in art, science, everyday activities, or in this case, sex. Getting messy can also teach us things through hands on experience. And for some, getting messy can be therapeutic and reduce stress because it allows us to get rid of this rigid expectation that many of us have been raised with and to simply enjoy the moment. Because I don't know where you're listening from, but for me, out here in Ontario, Canada, we don't really have any festivals that teach us to embrace messiness. Instead, the culture here is very much be clean, stay clean, and like what D20 Dom said, it's like we're supposed to be so clean we're sterile. But where's the fun in that, right? We mentioned that Spain has a festival where they throw tomatoes at each other. South Korea has a festival that's focused all around mud, where they play in mud, wrestle in mud, swim in mud, and are ultimately participants are practically drowning in their mud. Thailand also has a festival during their new year where everyone throws water at each other through buckets or water guns or hoses. And to me, unless you live in the country, I do feel like Canada's overall attitude about mess is that it really doesn't like it and would just prefer to have everything and everyone spick and span. But being neat and tidy all the time isn't a way of living. And to some degree, we need mess because getting messy includes all of our senses, which can enhance and develop our sensory skills, regardless of what age you are. And developing our sensory skills is important for several reasons. It allows us to perceive and interpret the world around us better. It can help us expand what our world is by introducing new textures, new tastes, and new smells. And even the different sounds of playing with those textures can also be appealing. It can stimulate our brain in positive ways. For example, for some people, squishing putty or kinetic sand through their hands can be helpful in reducing stress and anxiety. It can also help us adapt to different environments and situations more easily, and developing our sensory skills encourages us to be creative and imaginative because we don't have to deal with the constraints of being clean. Plus, trying to stay clean all the time also has its downfalls. Like if you're someone who has to be clean and orderly all the time, and you're constantly worried about mess in general, you're just increasing your own personal stress levels around the topic. Because that constant pursuit of being clean can contribute to unrealistic expectations and standards, which will ultimately leave you feeling inadequate or frustrated if you don't meet those standards. And for some, obsessively cleaning can be a way of trying to control their environment and reduce uncertainty. However, life is inherently uncertain, and excessive focus on cleanliness may be hurting your ability to cope with unexpected situations or changes. Like all things in life, there needs to be balance. So if sometimes you don't put away the laundry or empty the dishwasher right away, or, even in a day or two, the world isn't going to fall apart. But if that previous sentence resonates with you, then I certainly advise partaking in some messy activities and to embrace and reconnect to the beauty of being messy. Remember, the activity doesn't need to be big. You can do something small like finger painting or gardening. But it's just about getting comfortable with mess again. But ultimately, what I love most about getting messy is that it reminds me to not take life so seriously. And again, that there's beauty in the chaos of mess and imperfections. Plus, aren't we all just big kids who are looking to have as much fun as we possibly can in this short lifetime? And when I think about it, Many of my most favorite and fun memories involve having my hair being a mess and I'm breaking a sweat and I'm covered in something. And regardless of how messy it got, at the end, it was just a great time with a lot of laughs. And really, life is messy. I feel like it's built that way, so go ahead and find ways to embrace being messy. But what do you think about mess? Are you someone who wants to stay clean all the time? Or are you someone who doesn't mind getting absolutely down and dirty? Let me know in the comments, but that's all I have for my opinion on the benefits of getting messy and some clarification on what sploshing is. As for next week's episode, we are once again joined by the lovely Ancilla from Ancillary Kink Support. Ancilla was previously on the show in episode 97, Deconstructing and Uncovering Your Sexual Self Through Microscopic Study, and again in episode 125, Sexual Communication Practices for Better Sexual Engagement, which are both fabulous classes that she teaches. So if you haven't listened to those episodes yet, I highly recommend you go do that, and I have put their links in the description. But as for next week, Ancilla will be back to tell us more about her erotic writing journal, why erotic writing is not taken as seriously as complementary forms of masturbation compared to things like toys, and how the intersectionality of art and sex play out in erotic writing. Be sure to tune in next week for all that, but if you liked what you heard today, please share and subscribe to the Partition Home of Kinky Wellness YouTube channel to catch all the latest episodes. Any support you can give is highly appreciated, as I cannot advertise the word kink, which obviously is kind of annoying. But anyways, that's it for me. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And as always, stay kinky. I'll see you guys on Monday.